My name is Evelyn Brooks. I'm 72 years old, and just 3 weeks ago, I buried my only child. My son, Dr. Benjamin Brooks, was killed in a car accident when another driver ran a red light. One moment he was on his way to work at the hospital, and the next he was gone. Just like that. Benjamin was everything to me. After my husband died 8 years ago, it was Benjamin who called me every Sunday. He sent flowers on Mother's Day. He helped fix the faucet in my kitchen last Thanksgiving. He was a good son, a kind man, a brilliant doctor. The funeral was held on a crisp morning in early April. People came from all over. His colleagues spoke of his compassion and tireless work. His patients cried. I sat in the front row, dressed in the same black dress I wore for my husband's funeral, silently hoping I'd never have to wear it again. But life has a cruel sense of humor sometimes. After the service, we walked slowly to the cemetery. I stood by the grave, hands trembling, as they lowered the casket. People offered hugs and whispered condolences. I nodded, said thank you, and did my best to stay upright. It wasn't until most of the crowd had gone that I saw them 3 little girls standing under a tall oak tree nearby. They were maybe 10 or 11, dressed in black, holding hands. Triplets, unmistakably. Same brown eyes, same long dark hair pulled back neatly. They walked slowly to the grave. Each carried a white daisy. Without a word, they placed the flowers on the fresh soil. Then one of them whispered, "Bye, Daddy." My breath caught. I must have gasped because they all looked up. Our eyes met. And then, without another word, they turned and ran. Their small feet pounding against the gravel path, hands still locked together. I stood frozen, staring after them, heart pounding in my chest. Did she really say Daddy? Did I just imagine it? Benjamin didn't have children. He wasn't married. He never even talked about someone special. Mrs. Fletcher, my neighbor, gently touched my arm. "Evelyn, honey, let's go home." But I couldn't stop looking in the direction the girls had run. I didn't know it then, but that moment the sound of a child saying goodbye to her father was the beginning of everything. A mystery, a truth, and the start of a family I never knew I had. The next morning I woke up with the image of those 3 little girls burned into my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about them, the way they stood together, the quiet grief on their faces, and that one soft word, Daddy. I told myself I was being foolish. Grief plays tricks on the mind. Maybe they were visiting another grave. Maybe I misheard. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, my heart kept whispering otherwise. The following week, I returned to the cemetery every morning. I brought fresh flowers for Benjamin's grave and sat nearby on a bench, hoping, praying I might see them again. And then, on the 5th day, I did. They came walking up the path, dressed in school uniforms, this time navy skirts, white blouses, little backpacks slung over their shoulders. Each girl held a single red carnation. They approached Benjamin's grave quietly, as if performing a sacred ritual. I stayed hidden behind a tall hedge, watching. After placing the flowers, one of them again, the girl in the middle whispered, "We miss you, Daddy. Aunt Carolyn says you're in heaven now." Aunt Carolyn. I stepped forward before I could second-guess myself. My footsteps must have made a sound, because the girls turned and looked at me. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. Were you visiting Dr. Benjamin Brooks?" The same girl who had spoken earlier nodded cautiously. "Yes, he was our dad." My knees almost gave out. I'm his mother," I managed. "My name is Evelyn." They stared at me, wide-eyed, and then the girl said, "I'm Emily. This is Grace, and that's Sophie." Triplets, my granddaughters. It was Emily who took a small step forward. "Daddy used to tell us stories about you. He said you were the best mommy in the world. He said we'd meet you someday." My heart ached. Why didn't I ever know about you? Before Emily could answer, a sharp voice called out from the distance. "Girls, what do you think you're doing?" A woman in her 50s approached us quickly, her face a mixture of panic and frustration. She was tall, thin, with tired eyes and strong hands that looked like they'd worked hard their whole life. The girls backed up instinctively. "We're sorry, Aunt Carolyn," Emily said. "We just wanted to visit Daddy." The woman turned to me. "And you are?" I stood tall, even as my voice trembled. "I'm Evelyn Brooks, Benjamin's mother." Color drained from her face. She glanced from me to the girls. "Come on, we're leaving." "Wait," I said. "Please. I didn't know they existed until today." Carolyn's eyes narrowed. Benjamin had his reasons. He was trying to protect everyone. Let it go. Then she led the girls away. But just before they disappeared, Emily turned and looked at me one more time. "Will we see you again?" she called out. And in that single moment I knew I couldn't walk away from this. Not now, not ever. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's face. Heard her asking, "Will we see you again?" The answer had to be yes. It had to be. The next morning, I returned to the cemetery once more. But this time I came prepared with snacks, water, and a folding chair. I didn't know what I was doing exactly, only that I had to try. 3 days passed before I saw them again. Same blue sedan. Same 3 girls, now wearing weekend clothes, and holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. This time I didn't hide. As they approached the grave, I stood and waved gently. They stopped, unsure. But Emily gave a small nod and started walking toward me. Her sisters followed closely behind. "I hoped I'd see you again," I said softly. "We did too," Grace whispered. I knelt to their level. "I don't want to scare you or get you in trouble. I didn't know Benjamin had children." Emily looked down. "He told us you were still really sad about Grandpa Gerald. That maybe one day, when it wouldn't hurt so much, we'd meet you." I blinked hard, swallowing tears. I lost my husband 8 years ago. It was hard, yes. But losing Benjamin, that nearly broke me. And finding out I had 3 granddaughters, it's the only thing that's made me feel something again. They exchanged looks, unsure. But Sophie, gentle Sophie, stepped forward and took my hand. "We missed Daddy," she said simply. "We wanted to say goodbye." "Where's Aunt Carolyn today?" I asked. "She's working," Emily said. "She cleans offices. We're not supposed to skip school, but we really wanted to come." Something inside me cracked open. "Does Carolyn know about me?" "She saw you at the funeral," Emily said. She said it was better if we didn't get attached." "Attached," I repeated. "I'm your grandmother." They looked startled, like they hadn't been allowed to consider that possibility before. Then Emily said, "She's scared. She's tired all the time. She tries so hard." "I believe that," I said gently. "But maybe she doesn't have to do it all alone." That's when I asked the question I'd been holding back. "Can I see you again? Maybe talk to Aunt Carolyn?" They looked uncertain. But Grace, who had barely spoken until now, said quietly, "She's strict. But if you came to our house with cookies, she might listen." That made all 3 of them smile. It was the first time I saw light in their eyes. Before they left, Emily handed me a piece of paper with a phone number. "It's our landline. Sometimes Aunt Carolyn picks up, but sometimes we do." I held that scrap of paper like it was gold. "Thank you." As I watched them leave, a thought struck me clearly for the first time. Benjamin didn't hide them to hurt me. He hid them to protect them, and maybe to protect me too. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. That weekend I called the number Emily had given me. Carolyn answered. There was silence on the line when I said who I was. I expected anger, maybe even a hang-up. But instead, she sighed. "You're not going to stop, are you?" she asked flatly. "No," I replied. "Because those girls are my granddaughters. I deserve to know them." Another pause. "Fine," she said. "Omari's Diner, Maple Street tomorrow, 4 p.m., but just to talk." When I walked into the diner the next day, the girls were already seated in a corner booth, sipping milkshakes and splitting a basket of fries. Carolyn sat across from them, arms folded, shoulders tight. She didn't waste time. "You want to know why Benjamin never told you?" she asked. "Because he knew what this would become. A tug of war. And those girls," she nodded toward the triplets, "have had enough instability for a lifetime." "I don't want a war," I said. "I just want to understand." Carolyn exhaled slowly, as if weighing her words. "Sarah, my sister, their mom was sick. Not mentally at first. It started physically. Weak muscles. Constant fatigue. Doctors thought it was something viral at first. But it was genetic. A progressive muscular disorder." My chest tightened. "It's hereditary," she continued. "2 of the girls, Grace and Sophie, carry it. Emily doesn't. Not as far as we can tell." I looked over at the girls. They were laughing quietly now, dipping fries in milkshakes like kids do. Carefree. But were they? Carolyn went on. Sarah couldn't handle it, watching her kids get weaker. The stress broke her. She took her own life 4 years ago. I felt like the booth beneath me vanished. "What?" She couldn't do it. But Benjamin did. He stepped up. He was always there. Doctor or not, he changed diapers, ran errands, paid for therapy. And he kept it all quiet, because he said you'd suffered enough after Gerald, that this would be too much. I wiped my eyes with a napkin. He thought I couldn't handle sick grandchildren? Carolyn shrugged. He thought you deserved peace. But that peace cost me 10 years with them. I know. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I asked the question that had been clawing at my gut. What now? What do they need? She looked down, stirred her coffee. More than I can give them alone. Physical therapy, specialist visits, medication. And now we just learned the progression's getting faster. It's going to get worse. I nodded slowly. Then let me help. She looked up sharply. You mean money? I mean time, money, everything. Let me be part of this. The girls were listening now, eyes wide, silent. Emily whispered, we don't want Aunt Carolyn to be tired anymore. Sophie added, and we don't want to get sicker. Carolyn's voice cracked. You don't understand what you're getting into. I don't care, I said. They're family. And if there's a fight ahead, then I'm in it with them. This wasn't pity. This was purpose. For the first time in years, I knew exactly what I had to do. We moved to Baltimore less than 3 weeks later. Carolyn quit her night cleaning job, and I rented a furnished townhome within walking distance of Johns Hopkins. The plan was to stay for 6 months, the duration of the girls' participation in the treatment program. It wasn't easy. Grace and Sophie had different therapy schedules. One needed aquatic therapy, the other had weekly neuromuscular assessments. Emily often sat quietly nearby, her schoolwork spread across her lap, waiting patiently while her sisters were poked and prodded. Some days they were exhausted before noon. Other days they cried in frustration when their legs wouldn't cooperate. I cried with them sometimes. Carolyn too. But there were victories. Small ones like Grace walking across the kitchen without help. Big ones like Sophie being able to hold a pencil steadily enough to draw again. Emily never complained. But I saw it the way she carried herself, how she'd glance at her sisters during appointments with a mixture of guilt and protectiveness. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, I found her awake in the living room, curled up with a book. You okay, sweetheart? I asked. She shrugged. I'm fine. But she wasn't. I sat beside her. It's hard being the one who's not sick, isn't it? Tears welled up in her eyes. Sometimes I feel like I have to be strong all the time. Like if I get upset, it's selfish. It's not, I said softly. You matter just as much. You always will. She leaned into me then, just a little. It was the first time she'd allowed herself to do that. One morning, after a grueling physical therapy session, Sophie looked up at me and asked, Will we get better, Grandma? I knelt down beside her. We're trying everything we can, sweetheart. And no matter what happens, you won't be alone. Ever. The girls began calling me Grandma Evelyn without being asked. Carolyn and I started trading off responsibilities. One of us handled schoolwork, the other managed appointments. In the evenings we ate dinner together, often something simple like soup or pasta. Afterward we played board games or watched old Disney movies. Laughter returned to our lives in tiny, precious increments. It wasn't glamorous, it was exhausting, but it was real. Dr. Leland, their specialist, told us after 3 months that the early signs were hopeful. Grace had gained muscle strength, Sophie's progression had slowed significantly. Emily remained healthy. Hope bloomed cautiously but surely. We weren't just enduring this, we were building something new. A team, a family. The girls no longer seemed like fragile secrets or silent griefs. They were vibrant, funny, resilient little humans who told knock-knock jokes at the dinner table and argued over who got the last cookie. One night, as we all sat in the living room folding laundry and talking about Halloween costumes, I realized something. This wasn't temporary anymore. Whatever came next, we were facing it together. Not out of duty. Out of love. 6 months turned into 10. When the treatment program ended, the doctors were amazed. Grace had regained enough mobility to walk short distances without support. Sophie, though still needing rest more often, could now hold a crayon and write her own name again. The degenerative process had not only slowed, it had partially reversed. Hope. Real, tangible hope. But it wasn't just the medical progress that changed us. We'd found a rhythm: mornings with breakfast chaos, afternoons filled with schoolwork and therapy, evenings with story time, debates about dessert, and shared chores. What once felt like an emergency plan became our life. The question came naturally one day over pancakes. "So, are we going back?" Emily asked, pouring syrup a little too eagerly. Carolyn and I looked at each other. We hadn't talked about it in weeks, but we both knew the answer. "I think we already are home," I said. That afternoon, Carolyn and I visited a local real estate office. We toured a modest but cheerful 2-story house just a few blocks from the clinic. 5 bedrooms, a big yard, and enough space for everyone, including a quiet room for therapy and a tiny music nook for Sophie, who'd begun plucking at a donated keyboard with surprising talent. We bought it together. Carolyn used her savings and started a course in patient advocacy. She wanted to help other families navigate the medical maze we had fought through. I covered the medical bills, household needs, and a few extras like weekly art lessons for Grace and a debate club for Emily, who turned out to be impressively opinionated. The girls each picked their bedroom colors. Grace went for lavender. Sophie wanted stars on her ceiling. Emily picked navy blue and insisted on a bookshelf big enough for at least 50 books. We hung family photos, new ones, and a few old ones of Benjamin. My favorite was a candid shot of him at the park, all 3 girls crawling over him, their faces bright with joy. That picture sits beside my bed now, not just because it reminds me of Benjamin, but because it captures what he gave them and what they gave him. A reason. A purpose. A love worth keeping secret because it was too precious to risk losing. He was wrong to hide it from me, but I finally understood why he did. Now we weren't hiding anything. We were building something, room by room, day by day. And for the first time in a long time, our house wasn't just full. It was full of life. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table debating whether pineapple belonged on pizza, Emily and I were firmly against, while Grace and Sophie championed it like a cause. I looked around and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the quiet kind that comes from solitude, but the warm, slightly chaotic kind that comes from love, noise, and knowing exactly where you belong. I used to think my story had ended when Benjamin died, that I was just passing time until the end came quietly, but life had different plans. It gave me 3 little girls who taught me that love doesn't disappear when someone leaves. It simply shifts, waiting patiently to be found again. It gave me a daughter I never expected, Carolyn, who once met me with suspicion but now meets me with trust. It gave me purpose. And it reminded me that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives are the ones we didn't plan. Now I wake up each morning to breakfast chatter, homework questions, therapy appointments, and the occasional stuffed animal in my bed, and I wouldn't trade any of it. Not for the quiet, not for the money, not for the version of life I thought I wanted. Because this is the version that saved me. To anyone out there who's lost someone, who feels like their story is over, please know it's not. Sometimes family finds you when you least expect it. Sometimes love shows up disguised as chaos, need, or even grief. And when it does, let it in. You never know what kind of beautiful life is waiting on the other side of goodbye. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, or leave a comment. I'd love to know what would you have done if you were in my shoes. And if you're going through your own season of loss or rediscovery, I hope you find your way home too. Thanks for watching. Before you go, let me ask you this. Have you ever discovered a secret that changed your life completely, like finding out you had family you never knew existed? Or maybe you've been in a position where you had to step up, not out of obligation, but out of love. If so, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. This channel is built on real emotions, quiet strength, and the moments that define us. And if Evelyn's journey resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Share this video with someone who might need a little hope today. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, stories of betrayal, quiet revenge, and unexpected healing. And if you want to keep going, I've left 2 more unforgettable stories right here on the screen. Whichever one you choose, I promise it will stay with you long after the credits roll. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next story.